circle of Willis is very simple. You need not get very confused with this diagram. We will break it down for you. First, we are starting with the vertebral artery. This V shape you see here, this V shape, these are the two vertebral arteries. So remember, so this is the vertebral artery. Both the vertebral artery is going to form the basilar artery. So simple. This is vertebral arteries. Now, vertebral artery has two branches. One is the anterior spinal artery, ASA, anterior spinal artery. Second is the pica. What is pica? Posterior inferior cerebellar artery. So that is how it is formed. Vertebral artery, two vertebral arteries forming the basilar artery. So I've changed it to green so that you can see better. Two vertebral arteries joined together to form the basilar artery. There are two branches of vertebral artery. One is the anterior spinal artery and the second is the pica. Okay. Now, the basilar artery is formed. Okay. So, let's erase the basilar artery. It is going to give branches. The first branch is the AICA, anterior inferior cerebellar artery. So, the pica is given by vertebral artery, anterior inferior cerebellar artery is given by the basilar artery. After that, there is going to be pontine branches. So, these are the several pontine arteries that it is going to give. After this, AICA, that is anterior inferior cerebellar artery, is going to give a small branch called the labyrinthine artery. So, technically even labyrinthine artery is a part of the basilar artery. Okay. So, 1, 2, third is pontine branches. Okay. And then there are two important branches. It is going to end into superior cerebellar artery. Alright. Superior cerebellar artery and posterior cerebral artery. Okay. So, this is the superior cerebellar artery and this is the posterior cerebral artery. I hope from this part to this part it's clear now for you. Okay. So, the cerebellar arteries, if you take, there is a superior cerebellar, inferior cerebellar. Inferior cerebellar itself will have posterior inferior cerebellar, anterior inferior cerebellar. Posterior inferior cerebellar is a part of vertebral artery. Anterior inferior cerebellar is a part of basilar artery. Superior cerebellar artery is also a part of basilar artery. So, any questions they ask, which is a part of which artery, you will be able to answer now. Okay. Now, we have completed this part. So, up to this is the posterior circulation, right? What did we learn? Posterior circulation is made up of arteries from the vertebral, which is the vertebral arteries, basilar arteries and posterocerebral. Up to the level of posterocerebral artery is the posterior circulation. Now, anterior circulation. All anterior circulations start with internal carotid artery. So, this is the internal carotid. Okay. Internal carotid is going to give one first branch called the posterior communicating artery. This one, you see, this is the posterior communicating artery. Posterior communicating artery is the artery which is going to connect the anterior and this posterior circulation. Right? So, which is the artery that is connecting the anterior and the posterior circulation is the posterior communicating artery. So, the posterior communicating artery is coming and joining the posterior cerebral artery. Now, the area before this, that is proximal to the joining of the posterior communicating artery, this area is P1 and this area is P2. The P1 and P2 is divided according to the part where posterior communicating artery is joining the posterior cerebral artery. The area that is proximal to the joining of posterior communicating artery is your P1, distal to it is called as P2. This much is clear. So, the first branch is posterior communicating artery. The second branch is, we know that it is going to give a most important artery, anterior cerebral artery. This is the anterior cerebral artery. Both sides, internal carotid is going to give anterior cerebral artery. Okay. and continues as MCA. Now, apart from this, remember two more arteries. Please remember ophthalmic artery and anterior choroidal artery. It is also a part of internal carotid system. Okay. Now, these two anterior cerebral arteries are connected by anterior communicating artery. They are communicated by anterior communicating artery. So, obviously now it is going to be easy. The part that is proximal to it is called A1. The part that is distal to anterior communicating artery is A2. So, it is simple. So, now we know A1, A2, and that is how a circle of Willis is completed. Okay. So, it's very simple if we can understand. Two vertebral arteries are going to get connected with their, and we know the branches of the two vertebral arteries. It is going to get formed into basilar artery. Basilar artery gives 5 branches, where posterior cerebral artery, it ends with the posterior cerebral artery. Internal carotid artery gives posterior communicating artery and anterior cerebral artery, then ophthalmic artery and anterior choroidal artery. The two anterior cerebral arteries are communicating with each other with anterior communicating artery. Okay, middle cerebral artery is technically not a part of the circle of Willis, but then it is a continuation of the internal carotid artery. So, once we understand this, the localization further also will be easier, and with this we will start the introduction of stroke. Yeah, so again I have given the branches. So, pica and ASA are branches of vertebral artery. What are the basilar artery branches? Anterior inferior cerebral artery, pontine branches and labyrinthine branches, superior cerebral artery, posterior cerebral, superior cerebellar artery and posterior cerebral artery. Branches of ICA, the first branch we learnt, posterior communicating artery, then anterior cerebral artery. The two other branches are anterior choroidal artery and ophthalmic artery. It continues as the middle cerebral artery.